It's way past time I dispense some indiscriminate justice!
G'day guys, Duckville here. We're going to have some replays from MLG. I thought I'd grab some of the replays from the open brackets and we'll have a look at some of these players who weren't actually featured on either of the live streams. Of course, we do have two streams at the MLG at the moment, the MLG or MLG, whatever you want to call it. Featuring, generally they're more of the higher featured players, and of course depending on which particular pool they're in, they'll be featured on that particular stream. But these sorts of players which I'll be grabbing from at the moment will be from the open bracket, so they won't be featured at all on the live stream. But I thought it's good to have a look. It's good to have a look at some of these other players which not too many people may know about. For example, our player down here, we'll start with our Zerg, is a pink-coloured Zerg down here in the bottom left of xel'naga Caverns. This is MLG xel'naga Caverns, but we'll get to that in a second. This is, well, the name says Puppy Tuppy, but according to the brackets and everything, this is actually WetGoat. I have, for one, never heard of WetGoat before, but we'll see. Obviously, a very high-quality player to be competing at MLG. And the opponent which WetGoat will be against is BlueTea. Some of you may actually know BlueTea. Is a female Protoss player from the US who actually streams regularly. Pretty cool to watch. So make sure you jump on her stream if you get some time and want to see some high-quality Protoss action. But as I said, the map will be MLG xel'naga Caverns, and obviously this means that with the MLG versions of all of these maps, they've got these little supply depots down at the ramp so that you can't do any sorts of early shenanigans with pylons or bunkers and that sort of thing, which especially Zerg really hates. So that'll be quite good for WetGoat, and we'll see if Goat is going to take any advantage of that, of course. And as we can see here, an early expansion has gone up. I believe that was a 15 hatch that went straight up there for Goat. BlueTea going for a very standard sort of build. We got the gateway over here at the ramp, which will probably block off along with the cyber core in a moment. And of course, the gas is now done. But obviously, xel'naga Caverns, quite a balanced map where we do see all sorts of strategies coming out. Generally, you will see a Protoss go for some kind of death ball sort of thing. Sort of at the mid-game with some Colossus and obviously the gateway sorts of forces that they do put together, which Zerg will obviously have to counter with their own versions of their counter death ball. So we'll see what happens. As we can see here from WetGoat, just before we get to what BlueTea is up to, we actually have no gas coming along from WetGoat, so we'll see. Perhaps this could be the Spanishiwa style, or the Ice Fisher style, if you like to call it by that particular name, whereby you don't get any gas until around about 40 supply, and then once you've got that 40 supply, you hook up the gas in both of the expansions, get your Zergling speed, get your leg, and all that sort of stuff. And the advantage of that is it really lets you saturate your expansions quite heavily. As we can see here on the income tab, we actually have Puppy Tuppy or WetGoat just in front by a moment here, sort of really pumping away at those drones, as we can see there. And if we have a quick look on the Harvester tab, in fact, no, we've actually got BlueTea really pumping along really hard with the probes for the moment. So BlueTea is actually way in front for the moment, but I'm sure that there will be a lot of drones popping out now that that expansion hatchery is done. Now, as we can see here with this Spanishiwa build, you do get a couple of spine crawlers for defense, of course, given that you will generally only have those slow Zerglings to help you defend at the start of the game. And it looks as if BlueTea grabbing a couple of extra gates here. This may be some sort of 3-gate expand. I would assume it is. Have a look here. We've got one sentry out, another one is on the way, and warp gate tech will be coming soon as well. So I'm predicting this will be some sort of 3-gate expand, general sort of thing which you do see these days from Protoss against Zerg. Now, we do have a couple of extra spine crawlers going down here, so we'll see what Goat is going to do. Probably, as I said, this Spanishiwa, yep, there's a queen. We'll probably see maybe an extra queen. There's one extra queen. Generally, you see another one. There it is, bam, right on time. And there we are. So we've got some creep tumors coming out. Now, if you don't really know too much about the Spanishiwa build, as I mentioned before, so it's very low gas right at the start, or no gas right at the start, focusing on minerals, getting your saturation up right nice and high, as we can see here, getting up to 25 drones, and then focusing on getting out into the mid-game. And obviously, with the extra queens, you use them for defense against air units and for pumping out some more creep tumors, as we saw just there from Goat, and then you can actually use those to get a lot of creep spread throughout the map, which will help you in the mid-game, where you generally will focus on roaches, or perhaps go into some sort of other tech, depending on what your opponent is doing. Now, BlueTea with some sentries out now. There is no hallucination, so there has been no scouting just as of yet from BlueTea. Knows that the expansion is there, is probably going to be expecting that it could be some sort of the Spinishiwa build, as we mentioned. Not having any gas there is quite a clear sign that it is going to be something along those lines, and to counteract that, it's actually can be sometimes quite a difficult process to counteract that particular build that Zergs have been doing with this lately. I'm not exactly sure if there's a proper, you know, paper, scissors, rock sort of counter to it. I think you just sort of have to adapt as the time goes on, and it really depends on what the Zerg is actually going to be doing. And we'll see what Goat gets up to. And now, as we mentioned there, the creep spread is quite a big part of this particular build. We've got some creep spreading all the way along here. Now, of course, the creep tumors give you good vision. As we can see here, there's all that vision at the front of the base. We've got the 2 xel'naga watchtowers in the middle, which are going to give Goat a nice amount of vision through there, just to see if BlueTea is going to push through the middle of the map. And as of yet, there's been no attempt to sort of beef up the unit count for BlueTea just yet. Still sticking with that very heavy sentry count for the moment. Really focusing hard on the economy here. I really love that. Getting really focused on those probes to make sure that the economy is keeping in check with the Zerg. And now, as I mentioned before, with this kind of build, there's the gas, as we mentioned earlier. You grab those at around about 40. But with the Spinishiwa build, because it's so high in economy, if you don't keep up with that, that's actually where you come into a lot of trouble as a Protoss, is when you sort of sit back, and if you sort of do a standard sort of unit mixture where you'll grab these sorts of a fair amount of stalkers, some sentries, and the zealots right at the start, and you don't focus on getting a lot of probes out, you can actually run into a lot of trouble when you get to that stage after you do an initial push. And if you were to fail, your economy is then far behind as well as your unit mix as well. So it's actually not the best idea to sort of stick with going really hard on the units for the moment. And as BlueTea has done here really well, is to keep up in the economy stakes. So we'll see what the plan is here. We've got a lot of Zerglings out in the middle of the map. They're on the left side and the Protoss forces are on the right side. We'll see what happens when they engage. It looks as if they may engage here right at this right side xel'naga watchtower, but I don't think it's going to happen. No, it looks as if Goat is going to retreat, and we'll see the BlueTea is also going to retreat for the moment, because there are just perhaps just a few too many Zerglings there to engage right at the moment. Obviously, with some decent force fields, it'll be a piece of cake to kill all of those Zerglings, but probably not the best idea to engage that right at the start. Now, look at this creep spread. It's going quite nicely right now. Obviously, some of the high-level Zergs, such as Rhett and Hydra and those sorts of dudes, are really good with their creep spread. If you can keep it up, as we can see here, interesting to see. Am I seeing that WetGoat is not actually using the spread creep, spawn creep tumor function? Because that's actually quite hilarious. Not actually sure if that is something that WetGoat has just been messing up, or is perhaps not using it all, but either way, that's a bit interesting. But we'll see here that a robotics facility has gone down for BlueTea. She's going to be grabbing that and probably getting out some Colossus tech shortly, I would assume. Up to 5 gates at the moment. We got 4 inside the main, and then another 1 out the front of the base. +1 to weapons is now done. +1 to air weapons is on the way for our little Zerg hero down here. He does have a few Mutalisks out. We've got a total of 7 right now, and they're going to have their +1 almost, well, it's around about a third of the way done now. The Zerglings, as we can see here, will have their +1 to both carapace and melee attacks done. So they're going to be doing a nice amount of damage once they get into battle, and we'll see what they're going to do when they actually encounter BlueTea's forces. Now, these Mutalisks are roaming around the map. They do find a pylon that was placed down here, right on this sort of 3 o'clock base, which was probably going to be used to spawn in some units if needed for BlueTea. But now the Mutalisks are going to come inside here. There really isn't too much here to defend this just yet. There are a couple of cannons going down. This mineral line is way exposed. Stalker's now coming inside. The probes have to retreat. A cannon is going down at the back, has to be cancelled there. And the Mutalisks are going to go to town on the rest of these buildings here, but it looks like they're going to have to run away because there are too many Stalkers coming inside. Now getting caught out by a couple of those cannons, and the cannons take a few shots. Not too much damage done to these Mutalisks, but one goes down. A second one is almost dead. There it is, and a couple more cannons going up. Perhaps a few too many cannons here from BlueTea. I'm not really sure if that is a bit of an overreaction. I'm not sure. I suppose it is better to be safe than sorry, you could say. So we'll see if that is the case for BlueTea. Now, in fact, expanding down here to the gold. A very nice maneuver. Loving this play so far for BlueTea. coming down here, putting down a few cannons, and probably going to put down that gold expansion in just a moment. And now, as we can see, look at this economy from WetGoat. It's actually sitting on around about 1,500 minerals and 1,000 gas, so way over, way banking there, like a lot of stuff that can be used up there. And the Zerglings are still poking around the map, trying to pick off this one probe, but the xel'naga watchtower was a bit of a tough probe made with Teflon. It didn't go down straight away, but now the Nexus has been placed, along with a couple more cannons and a pylon or two just for defense. And this gold will be certainly getting up shortly, which will really help out with BlueTea's economy. And now the Mutalisks flying into a bit of trouble here. There are way too many Stalkers to engage, not to mention the sentries on the ground as well. And now there are going to be Zerglings all over the place, but they are blocked out by beautiful force fields there from BlueTea. Just cutting off the Zerglings. Don't need to engage the Zerglings if you are picking off Mutalisks at the same time. And now, as we can see, the Colossus deck is on the way, along with extended thermal lance, those little spidery legs on the robotics bay, poking away at whatever the hell that is in the middle, and that will be done shortly. And once this Colossus comes out from the robotics facility there, this will start getting a bit messy for WetGoat. Now we'll see what WetGoat is going to do. I'm really thinking that WetGoat is quite far behind here. Really should have grabbed this third base a little bit earlier, not to mention get the saturation down on that quite a bit earlier. As we can see here, the Harvester tab showing BlueTea way in front, currently sitting up at 65 probes to 48 drones. That is not where you want to be as a Zerg in any way, shape or form, especially when you've got a Colossus knocking on your door. And now with those creep tumors, the interestingly unactivated creep tumors, they certainly are. I think WetGoat was just not aware that you can actually use these to spawn extra creep tumors. Do make sure you're always doing that when you are playing as a Zerg. And now we can see that a DT shrine is on the way. I personally love DTs. This will be really cool if we get to that stage, but I'm not even sure if we're going to get that far into this game, because BlueTea is now pushing a whole heap of zealots here, along with some stalkers, some sentries, perhaps a little bit of a miss micro on those force fields. I don't know if they were needed just yet, but the Zerglings come around the other side. There's some beautiful force fields, cutting off those Zerglings from getting inside. The Colossus has gone down. Still more and more force fields going down. That is actually really nice control to make sure that those Zerglings stay outside. The Mutalisks are actually having a bit of trouble getting in there to attack those Stalkers because of all those force fields. And the, well, the reason I say that, you say, but they fly, you idiot. Well, if the Stalkers don't have to compete with the Zerglings on the ground, then it is going to be a lot of trouble for the Mutalisks to take them down. So that's one thing to consider. A couple of cannons here will easily hold up this gold expansion, but the Zerglings have decided that running into the natural is probably a better idea. Not really sure how this is going to go. There are a few cannons here, not to mention some warping in as Zealous there. Perhaps that mantra of the better to be safe than sorry was better there for BlueTea. And now the Zerglings retreating along the path of the gold, not really getting too far along there. These Mutalisks are a bit happy with that robotics facility, trying to take that down, but the cannons just pounding away at all of those. And now with these Zerglings attempting to run around the back there, but actually blocked off by this pylon wall, this is not going well at all for WetGoat. So we'll see, perhaps this could be a final push, which will come through shortly from BlueTea. As we can see on the minimap, there is a nice amount of creep spread here for WetGoat, but is starting to retreat now with those creep tumors being destroyed, and especially given that they haven't really been utilized to their full potential, this is actually going to be quite a lot of trouble for WetGoat to deal with this big force, which is now moving in here. The Zealots do have one, and they in fact just picked up their +2 to weapons, and they've got +1 to armor, so they're going to take no arguments from those Zerglings when they pop out. And a lot of Zerglings are still waiting to be pushed out down here to the expansion. This third expansion is dead in the water. Roachborn is going to go down. I'm not really sure what the point of that was, but have a look. We got a counter-attack up here at the gold expansion. This may actually push through this gold. The 3 cannons are the only things here to defend it, but it looks as if we can see on the minimap there, the BlueTea is trying to retreat now that the third is down, seeing if she can actually come back to save this gold expansion. And I don't know if this is going to happen, but it looks as if they just get there in time. So the cannons are going to be replaced there, a couple of pylons as well, and it looks as if BlueTea has done a really nice trade there. Did lose a lot of probes, of course, as we can see on the harvester count. A lot of probes have been lost there. They were up at 60 for those probes, but now they're back down to 40. And we'll see what the next plan of attack is for BlueTea. Meanwhile, WetGoat is having a little bit of trouble deciding what to do, having no luck getting that third base up, attempting to do it again here, and now also with a fourth base up, not saturated at all though. I'm not sure why. There are still a lot of drones here. There they go. I was about to say, what's with all these drones here in the natural? The hive is now done, so this could be interesting, but I don't think there's enough tech here. A DT is actually inside the natural here, hacking away at all of these drones, and it's got 6 kills. Meanwhile, just up here at the top, a massive battle going on. We'll have a quick look at that in full view. Colossus standing in the middle like a proud commander in the middle of the battle, pointing at what to do, saying kill those queens. The queens go down, mutalisks are going down all over the place, and there is just way too much for WetGoat to contend with, and the GG there from WetGoat. And that is that. So brilliant play there by BlueTea, just controlling the map quite nicely there, being very safe with the builds, as we mentioned with those cannons. Perhaps a little bit of an overreaction with there were a lot of cannons that were placed up here, but as we can see, that worked quite nicely in the end. So fantastic play there from game 1 between BlueTea and WetGoat.